Welcome to Black Belt Beauty Radio, a podcast fueled by a passion to support your journey in developing your most beautiful and optimal performance in life. Each episode is driven with the intention to elevate your mind. When we elevate our mind, we elevate our life. So get ready. It's time to rise. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Black Belt Beauty Radio. You guys, I'm so emotional as I get ready to drop this 1 year anniversary episode on all of you. It's unbelievable that it's already been 1 year since I launched Black Belt Beauty Radio. And, you know, it's major for me. And I'm just going to drop a little backstory before I get into this episode for you guys. When I first was inspired to start a podcast, it was 2 years before I would actually launch it. So inception of the idea came to me 2 years before the actual launch. And, at that period of my life, I'd been listening to so many podcasts, and I don't watch TV. With the exception of UFC fights, you guys, I legit don't watch TV. It's not Netflix. I have no time for that because I'm so addicted to learning and growing and progress that I love downloading information that supports my ability to do that, whether it's reading or audiobooks or podcasts. Podcast is a huge way for me to do that. So I was really appreciating what I was receiving and the, and podcasts in general. So, it inspired me to want to enter this space and I knew that I can offer something in this space, right? I'm a lover of the art of conversation, and I'm putting emphasis on the art of conversation because true conversation is an art, especially these days, So, in that 2 year period, you guys, I got really connected to why I want to do it in the first place, because I'm a firm believer that when you have a strong why, you stay the course. No matter how challenging it gets, you stay the course. And it's true. And it did that for me. And it's still doing that for me, And so, in addition to that, I got really clear on the, content, like how I wanted to produce it. Obviously I had to learn a lot of stuff as well. And then full transparency in this, I dropped this in episode 2 in a solo show, and I share this process with you guys, but just to go over it briefly, towards the end, I would say like the last 6 months, maybe 4, whatever, of that 2 year period before I launched it, I was hesitating. I knew why I wanted to do it very deeply. I knew how I wanted to do it, and I knew how to do it. So I had everything I needed basically to start. I just had to, record my first episode, and I felt myself hesitating. I had already been, putting it out there that I'm going to start the podcast, and I do that on purpose to put more pressure on myself, make it more real. And when I caught myself being afraid, which, goes hand in hand with hesitation, it was this, confrontation moment of like, wait, what are you doing right now? Oh, really? Okay. So, one of my best friends, Carla Esparza, UFC fighter, just total badass. She had offered to be a guest on my podcast. So, I was so psyched to have her on, and she had a fight coming up at the end of the year. So it was like within a 4-month range that this is all happening. Right. I strategically thought, okay, well, doing an episode with Carla before her fight means that I have to drop the podcast, right before her fight. It only makes sense, right? You don't want to do it afterwards. So it was like I was putting this kind of healthy pressure on myself in making her the first episode, which, by the way, is just an honor, period. So it was like all that, it was all coming together in this way of like, you have this incredible friend, badass female who has a sick mental framework. She's a trailblazer. You know, her story and her process is an epic way to start the podcast. She has a big fight coming up. You know, it's like it's now or never, Rox, right? So we did the episode, and it was so amazing. So much incredible feedback on it. And, you know, then launched the podcast. And what makes this even more fun, you guys, is that I went to her fight in Las Vegas, big end of the year UFC fight. And now I'm watching my girl, you know, enter the octagon. She does a beautiful job at winning. Watch her hand get raised. I'm able to give her a celebratory hug at the end. And for me, it was even more meaningful because, you know, on the one hand, it's like I'm watching my girl do her thing and she wins, but it's like attached to the launch of my podcast or episode. And oh, it was a big moment, you know, for many reasons. And so, you know, it was just this whole year, you guys, has been such a journey. It's continuing to be an adventure. And I can't thank all of you enough who listen, and for all of you who support me in my process. And, you know, it truly makes me emotional. God, you can hear it. I'm shaking. You know, for all of you who have written reviews, who send me DMs, who post, you know, share this stuff on your story, it means so much to me because this is something that, you know, I'm doing from the depths of my heart, and my intention behind it is to support all of you to turn your best into better every single day, because I believe that it's possible, you know? And so, my what I want to do with this 1-year anniversary episode is I'm going back, throughout the year, and I'm taking some of the conversations that I've had with these epic humans. I'm going to drop their intro gems on you. I call them intro gems, right? So it's like when you hit play on the episode, you're going to hear a very profound statement that I pulled from our conversation, and that's how the episodes start. And so I'm going to play those back and then just, you know, kind of give you a little aftermath thought on the person, and, you know, some the beauty of our conversation. So, you know, my intention is, number one, to honor these beautiful people who dedicated some of their valuable time to me and to this podcast to share their mindset, you know, their mental framework and their story and their process with all of us, with that intention, of supporting all of us to carry on with our pursuit, to actualize the visions that we hold for our lives, and to just essentially live from the highest expression of ourself, right? I mean, that's what Black Belt Beauty is all about, turning your best into better and living from your peak expression. So, you know, all of my guests have come on in support of that for all of us. So I want to honor them and thank them by, you know, pulling them back up and sharing them with you guys. And also, you know, I think it's a beautiful time to do this because it's the end of the year, and what a lovely way to end the year and move into a new one by, you know, getting very reflective and calibrating some more motivation and inspiration. I think it's a really beautiful way to do that as we end this year and start a new one. And also just to, you know, for those of you guys who have not gone back and listened to some of these conversations, my hope is that these, you know, intergems and just kind of talking about these guests will inspire you to do that, because there's a lot of value in our conversations that will support you to, you know, carry on with this journey that you're on to turn your best into better. So in all that being said, I'm going to hit play on my very first episode with my girl, Carla Esparza, and then break down a little bit about, you know, one of the most powerful things that I loved, because there's so many in our conversation, and then carry on into the next.
Yeah, it's cool. It still gives people like look, you get a second look if a girl says, "Oh, I do jujitsu," or "I do like wrestling," or "I'm a fighter." Like you definitely get a second look, but not the way it used to be like 10, 15 years ago. I love that though, that it's starting to become more normal.
Yeah,
It's not such a shock every time you hear it.
So I briefed you a little bit already on, Carla being one of my closest and, going into the podcast, launching it with her, which was a very big deal to me. Our episode will always hold one of the deepest spots in my heart because it's the starting off point. And what an epic way to jump off, man. Carla's no joke. I mean, she's a pioneer in the sport of mixed martial arts. Like, she's one of the first realized females in the sport. She was the first strawweight champion. Again, that's a 115 division for those of you who don't know. And she still has such a huge career in front of her. And, her mindset is powerful. To be a pioneer in any sport, you have to have a very powerful mental framework, right? You're paving the road. And I think I don't know, man, it feels even more powerful when you're a female and you're in a male dominated sport. It's a big deal. So one thing that I love that I took from our conversation was it was something that her father shared with her, and that was make finishing a habit. And I want to put a little bit of emphasis on that because I really believe that a lot of people stop short in their lives of, actualizing, of achieving some of the great things that they envision. And I believe that that's because, when we are closest to actualizing it is when it actually gets the most difficult. I don't know why that is. Some people might say, oh, it's like to see how bad you really want it. Like it's some, external force testing us. Maybe, I don't know. But in my experience, the most difficult things that, I've actualized, things that I've wanted to, like even the podcast, like in the last 6 months, like I said, it was probably the hardest because I felt the most fear. Oh shit, I'm going to put myself out there, right? But I had already gone so far by, knowing why I want to do it, learning how to do it, and, having everything I need to actually do it. So then it just got to the point where it was like, oh shit, okay, am I really going to do this now? I'm scared. What if? All that stuff. And I think that, that's just one reason why it could be hard for people. But there's a lot of other reasons that I think obviously step up on the journey and make it really extra challenging for people to not finish, to not be. And so, if you follow me on Instagram, I say this a lot, like, don't stop short. Be a finisher. So that advice that Carla's father gave to her at a young age, I think was so potently powerful. And, she's someone who displays that. She does not do anything half-assed, anything. And I love that. I love that quality. I really value that in humans. And so that's something that I wanted to put emphasis on from our conversation. And obviously, I encourage all of you who have not listened to episode number 1 with Carla yet to go back and listen to it. It's really fun. I'm going to have her back on the podcast. There's so much more to extract from, her mental framework and her process. So you guys drop in episode 1, Carla Esparza. Carla, I love you, girl, and I will always, always appreciate you for being my very first episode of this podcast. All right, you guys, next I am going to drop on you my friend, talented actress, Andrea Navedo.
A lot of the reasons why I booked Jane the Virgin, you can't give it the credit to any one person or thing. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of things that led up to it, but I think probably the main credit is that I decided.
Man, oh man, Andrea, let me just say this before I get into, why I love that piece that she drops on us in our conversation. I remember, after recording my podcast with Andrea, I was on one of my long beach runs, and it's, I'm running in like past sunset. It's like, I'm literally running the beach in the sand at night, like it's dark. And I created like a live video afterwards because I was so elevated. I was so inspired by our conversation, this incredible woman that I feel very fortunate to be able to call my friend. And, it's like, man, people who live this path of uncertainty and are truly paving the road by faith, by vision, by determination, which is all of what Andrea has been and continues to do. It just moves me in a way that, I was running and I so clearly remember this moment. Like, I just felt like I had fucking wings on me. It sounds funny, but I remember it. Like, it's getting me high to think about it right now, truly. So one of the things I want to highlight about that intro gem that Andrea, drops on us is that I back that up so firmly when we decide, like, when it's not about the how or the what we decide, it's like literally just like, I'm decided. And when we decide, it's like we're giving ourselves that final permission of saying, no matter what we need to endure, no matter what uncertainty, no matter what the process is, like, we're going to do it. We're going for it. And it's like, I can say this anecdotally in my own life. When I have decided, not like, oh, I want to do this. Okay, I'm going to try it. That's not the same thing, you guys. So maybe the best way to say this is that when we decide comes commitment. Decision and commitment go hand in hand. And I think that that's really something that Andrea was putting out there in that statement. Our entire conversation where she shares her process is so powerful. If you haven't listened to it, it's episode number 10. I think, to be an actor is such a gnarly career path. I mean, you don't know what's coming next. It's, a blood red ocean, meaning like the competition is fierce and you're hearing no more than you're hearing yes. And you can't let that stray you off your course. You have to keep believing in yourself. You have to keep moving forward no matter how many times you get knocked down with the nope, and all the creative ways that usually don't feel good, in hearing no. And so, it's amazing. Andrea has accomplished so much in her career already, and she has so much more to achieve and to create. And, we get into parts of that in this conversation. So it's a rad episode to listen to. Andrea, girl, I will always love you for dedicating your time before getting on a flight to support me and, all of us really with sharing your mental process and your story in this episode. So my girl, thank you. Can't wait to have you back on. For all of you who haven't listened, go back. I think it's an epic way to start the year by taking in this amazing woman's mental framework and her inspiring story. So on to the next, you guys.
This is why I'm doing this. It brings me so much joy. Everything's created with intention, and be able to share that, all my crazy, weird recipes, like with people like yourself. It's amazing. Healthy food does not need to be boring.
No,
it can be sexy and delicious.
I love my conversations with Amber so much. That was from episode 4, and she's also been a recent guest again, episode number 42. She just has so much rad knowledge to share in the space of, food and nutrition. I love that she puts emphasis on the fact that, healthy food isn't boring food. It's quite the opposite. It's very sexy food, and I think that, healthy food has a stigma of being boring because back in the day, not even that long ago, it's like healthy is just lettuce, something like that. And that's not true at all. And she proves that recipe after recipe. It's amazing. You have to follow her on Instagram if you don't already. Chef Amber LA. In addition to that, she's just a lover of overall wellness. When you go to Amber's house, she's such a biohacker. She has got all these rad, tools to biohack and, to support optimal health. So, both of our conversations, we talk about that stuff, and also she has ideas and, supportive ways to help everyone who listens in on how to implement, more of a healthy approach to diet. It's really fun talks with her, really yummy talks with her. So I highly recommend going back and listening to both of our episodes. The one that we just did recently, episode number 42, is really rad for those of you guys who, are planning to start this year with, resolutions, intentions to, alter your diet and just, get a better grip on your food and your nutrition in a way that is going to, elevate your health. So Amber, love you, girl. Always looking forward to having you back on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom here on this podcast with me, for all of us. It means everything to me. And yeah, I'm so excited. I know that there's so much more fun to come with our collaboration. So follow her and listen to the episodes number 4 and 42, you guys. Okay, on to the next.
He's struggled with his weight because he's so confused, and everybody, I feel like
it's confusing.
Yeah, it's confusing.
There's too much stuff out there.
And you know what? That's 100% on purpose, you guys. The food industry, diet doctors, people who write diet books, nutritionists, dietitians, not all of them, but most of them make money off you guys being confused.
Okay, so that is my good friend, clinical nutritionist, Julie Keene. I'm sure most of you already know who Julie is. She's been on the podcast twice already. I'm going to be launching another episode with her in January 2019. So she's a regular on this show, and for great reason. Man, Julie is such a wealth of knowledge in nutrition and really overall health. It's incredible. We have so much fun together, geeking out on biology and just optimizing health. And it's a really complex topic. It's a huge territory. I mean, it's just, science is always showing us that what we thought we knew, we didn't know, or now we know more of, or now, you know what I mean? It's gnarly. It's like, so to have someone like Julie help us navigate through all of this complex, topic of biology and nutrition and how food affects our overall state of health is major. It really is. I can't say enough how grateful I am to I met Julie in 2018, and it's just been one of the best new friendships that I've encountered, and I'm so grateful. So you guys, if you haven't listened to the first episode with Julie, is episode 12, and then we did another episode 32. I mean, both of them are super powerful. And here's the cool part. Our dialogue together is, even though we're talking about biology, and yes, you kind of have to be in the mood for that stuff. And yes, you obviously need to be very interested in that. But I'm sure a lot of you who listen to this podcast are. I mean, because it's a major component to how we perform. But Julie and I have so much fun. So we kind of, lighten you don't feel like you're sitting in a classroom is what I'm trying to say. So I highly recommend listening to those episodes, following her on Instagram. Man, like I can't wait for her book to come out because it's going to be so valuable. She just has so much to say and so much to share, and it's, science-based content. So definitely listen to her, follow her, all that good stuff. Julie, I love you. I appreciate you more than I can say. Yeah. See, I get emotional, you guys. This shit's real. All right. On to the next.
I still feel like I have so much more to go, but I think, and it didn't happen right away, but you start to realize that there's depth in anything that we do. And I think it comes down to being the best at what you do or a specific discipline or whatever it is bringing your most authentic self to the table every single time out. And when you do that, then you're truly living.
So that was my friend Kenny Florian. Kenny is a UFC legend, you guys, like truly a legend. He retired from the sport about a handful of years ago and went on to keep kicking ass in different avenues of work. He became a commentator for Fox, commentating on the UFC, which is such a rad show to watch. He has his own podcast that he co-hosts with John Anik. So it's for all the fight fans out there, man. You guys know that this is a really great podcast to listen to. I love listening to, Kenny's commentating on fighting, basically his mindset and approach to the whole. I mean, obviously, like being a legend in the sport, you're going to be able to speak to it very well, and he certainly does. But beyond that, he's done other things that are just really expressive of the fact that Kenny is so diverse, and I love that about him. He's a Gemini like me, and we tend to be people who like to be involved in, we have different passions. Like we have several passions, I can certainly attest to that myself in my life. And so I think that was a immediate parallel for us too, when Kenny and I first met and became friends. Before I even knew Kenny personally, I always admired his jujitsu. I mean, when I started training jiu-jitsu, he was still fighting in the UFC, and his style of jiu-jitsu is outstanding. It's like yummy to watch because there's just so much flow and it's just beautiful. So, here's the thing, man. At the time when I went to record this podcast with him, and it's episode 20, I was already, so I'm 20 episodes in, getting my bearings in the podcast. And here I am going to record a podcast with a friend that I have a lot of reverence for, and I really, really wanted to make sure that I delivered him with reverence, so I was like, I wasn't nervous, but it was probably the most pressure, if there was pressure, that I experienced from all my podcasts at that point, right? Like I really wanted to make sure that I could navigate us through a conversation without it feeling contrived, and get to all the touch points that, are the most, I guess, would be the most remarkable for you guys to absorb. There are so many with Kenny that, it was not necessarily going to be an easy task. However, it really was, when it was all said and done, I mean, the joy that I felt mutually in that room told me that, I did that job. I completed it in the way that I intended to. I gave him an incredible experience. And, I was able to extract some of the most awesome mindset gems from Kenny. And there are so many, you guys. He is, he's a deep thinker, and that's another, reason why we get along so well the way we do. He's a growth mindset individual and someone who really is, striving to live from the highest expression of himself. And, that intro gem that I dropped right now, to be living from your most authentic self, man, that's where it's at. For me, certainly that is so tied in to, my thoughts behind, being successful. I know I've expressed it a couple of times now in different podcasts. And it's definitely said in that episode with Kenny, but I really do believe that to be authentic to ourselves, to be living from our most authentic self, in as many minutes of our life as we can, and still achieve the things that we desire for our lives. And I say that because, so often people sacrifice that. They step away from their authentic self. That's the best way to put it. In order to get to where they want to go faster or get more of something, or you know what I mean? And they deviate from their truth. And it's just, or to acquire some, kind of materialistic source of success, but they've departed from themselves. And honestly, I don't even know how to do that. So it's probably something I don't need to worry about. But, there are ways that we can with social media. You can depart from your truth, your authentic self, in order to get more attention. I mean, that's an easy way to frame it. And it's something that I refuse to do. And so I love that Kenny expressed that in that gem. And if you guys haven't listened to my episode with Kenny, episode 20, I cannot recommend it enough. It's a beautiful, easy, flowing episode that will just invigorate the mind and, inspire you straight up. So, Kenny, thank you with all my heart. I know you are a very busy man and you carved out time for me, like without question. And it really moved me how immediate it was for you to just throw me a big yes with exclamation points to support me in this podcast, and really all of us who listen. I'm so proud to have you on this podcast, and proud to have you as a friend. So thank you so much. All of my love, and on to the next one, you guys. Here we go.
It's tough. It's draining, and not every day is good. And I think it works the same way in every field, whether you're working at a restaurant, anything that has to do with service. You need to constantly wake up every morning and tell yourself, today's going to be a good day. Today, I'm going to do my best. And obviously the people listening can't see it, but I have things on my walls that remind me that. I have pictures of me as a child smiling. I have little things on the wall that say, like, today I will love you. Because I know how to make money. And by making money is by providing a service, by giving somebody my all. But I cannot forget that I have to give myself a little bit too.
All right, so that was my boy, Castillo. Castillo is an incredibly talented celebrity hairstylist. And actually, he's the only friend so far that I have on the podcast who stems from my career as a celebrity makeup artist. So we go way back. We've worked on, several jobs together. And, it was pretty immediate with Castillo and I, our friendship. It was just like-minded individuals. He's such an artist. He's so... he has an aura and an energy that it's you feel it immediately. You want to be around him. It's very, there's a lot of respect and just, and he's so good at what he does, man. He is so talented. Our conversation, you guys, is rad. So many people threw us feedback that were, they were just stoked and inspired. And, rightfully so, because I got to say, like, being a freelance artist, you guys, is gnarly. It's not for the faint of hearts. Like, there is absolutely no job security whatsoever. None. The closest parallel is being an actor. In the initial, it's like you have to work so hard just to try and, get an opportunity. And usually those opportunities, they're small. They're, they don't pay well. They're just, you're doing a shit ton of work for free. And that carries on even like later in the game, because it's all about your relationships. And then you get to a point where you have great clients and they're doing lots of work. So there is, there's a lot more stability, but it takes a long time to get to that place, or whether it's long or not long, it's a gnarly journey, period. So it could be shorter for some people or longer for others, but everyone is experiencing a lot of adversity and challenge, throughout the whole pursuit. So, I'm proud of Castillo and what he's accomplished and where he is, because he is undeniably one of the best hairstylists in the realm of entertainment, period. So if you haven't listened to my episode with him, it's episode 18, super fun. It's, just easy to digest. And yeah, you guys, I mean, it's just really special to have friends who, are supportive like him. Castillo, I love you. Thank you for always being so supportive to me. Thank you for coming on the podcast, opening yourself up, getting vulnerable. I know it was new for you to do a podcast, but, it turned out that so many people were inspired and were so moved by you and your story. And, like I said, rightfully so, because your process, your story, your everything, it's so impressive and it should be applauded. I'm certainly applauding you and loving you, thanking you for coming on and sharing yourself with all of us. So you guys check him out, episode 18, and here we go on to the next.
If I can relate it to swimming, it's where you want to go, and that you're going to be good, or what you're going to do, and you have that inner confidence.
Yeah.
But there's no I'm not pigeonholing myself into this expectation that if I don't, then I'm going to be a piece of shit.
All right, I just dropped some Caroline Bergel on you all. And Caroline not only is an Olympian swimmer who competed in the Beijing Olympics 2008, took home a bronze medal, but she's also one of my favorite humans. She's just first of all, very genuine. And we met. This is so funny how we met. You guys have to listen to my episode with her because we talk about it, and I promise it will make you laugh. It's episode 16. Just, we literally met and exchanged numbers in that moment and immediately became friends. And I don't know, these days, you guys, I meet rad people all the time. But to actually make friends where you're actually going to invest energy by way of time, by way of whatever, time especially, it's not that common. You can meet rad people all the time and want to hang out with them, want to go out of your way and stay connected, but you just don't, because life gets fuller and busier and all that stuff. And then you just kind of appreciate them at a distance. But with Caroline, it was literally a text 5 minutes after I drove away from meeting her, and it hasn't stopped. So, there's so much to say about this rad woman. Our podcast is fun. I go back to the, starting from her childhood and taking her through the Olympics. And honestly, we had so much more to talk about. She's going to be on the podcast again at the top of 2019. And I'm so excited about it. I feel Caroline and I have a lot to do because there's just so much like-mindedness and, especially in the arena of just constant growth. And our conversations are always podcast worthy. I swear, if I just hit record, it's worthy of an episode. So, I think that what she points out in the intro gem is just really profound, and it's real. It's coming from a place of not trying to put yourself in a box and judge yourself so that you can actually live at a fuller expression of yourself, right? We can't get to that peak expression without being curious, and curiosity goes hand in hand with being open. And if we're judging, if we're trying to confine ourselves in some kind of title or, preconceived notion, then, we're not going to be able to fully grow. And if we can't grow, we're not going to hit that expression. So, I love that she dropped that on us, and there's so much more to dive into in the episode with her. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. Episode 16, like I said. And Caroline, my girl, I just adore you with all of my big ass heart. And, that episode was not only so much fun, but it was a total tease. And I am so looking forward to everything else that we're going to be creating together, because let's be real, there's a lot more coming from us. So I love you. And on to the next one, you guys. We're on a roll right now. Woo!
For some reason, you don't realize it until you actually experience it, that you're all this kind of subtle vulnerabilities that you feel on a daily basis, once those, not that they completely go away, because we're always going to be somewhat vulnerable to something, but it really it reflects on all areas of your life. How you interact with your partner, how you interact with business partners, how you interact with coworkers, how you set boundaries for yourself, like just the level of confidence that you get from knowing that. It's so strange how it really permeates all other areas of your life and your relationships, you know, and your connections. And so that to me is the most rewarding part of this, is watching women kind of like experience that through the training and them reporting on that and really sensing that. Because that is the ultimate goal, is not just like, oh, let's all choke guys out left and right, you know, like walk around the, you know, this world beating people up. That's not the goal. The goal is that we won't necessarily need to, because we exude this confidence and this, you know, this feeling and this ability that we are capable of doing that. And that we if we need to, we can go there.
All right, so that badass woman is one of my very best friends, Eve Torres Gracie. Man, like, where do I even start with her? Shit, it's hard. And I love that so much. I love it. That's why she's one of my best friends, because she's absolutely remarkable. You know, so here's a woman who, you know, grows up as an athlete, goes to USC, gets her, you know, her degree in engineering, moves on to, you know, win a contest for the WWE, and then, you know, becomes like diva champion, and, you know, at the same time is a total introvert. It's just rad. The you know, the kind of like, you would never think that, right? Like she's performing in front of thousands and thousands of people doing WWE, but she's the most soft-spoken, eloquent, articulate, just, you know, beautiful, beautiful woman. And then you throw in her badassery when it comes to women empowerment, self-defense, jiu-jitsu, like that whole package. It's next level. Like, she's unreal. And, you know, I mean, I have chills right now. I wish this was almost a video podcast right now. Cause it's real, you know? So her husband is Henry Gracie, and, you know, his family and my family grew up together, essentially. So Eve is really like family to me. I mean, we spent, you know, the holidays together, or, you know, a handful of them anyways. And, you know, she's an amazing friend. She's an amazing human. She is by far and so truly contributing to this world by living and doing the work that she does along with her husband, and just being a legit good person, like truly. Our episode is rad. You know, we get into a lot of her childhood, her process. There's so much there because she's done so much. And I mean, she's got so much more to do. Like, there's so much more coming from Eve. It's so exciting to witness it, and it's an honor to support her as her, you know, one of her closest friends. And just, I can't say enough about, you know, this remarkable woman and how much she means to me. And so if you haven't listened to our episode yet, I highly recommend it. It's episode 23. You know, for those of you guys who live in Southern California and want to meet Eve and maybe try jiu-jitsu, there is an all-woman seminar that's coming out in January. I'll have the exact date for you in the show notes, because on the top of my head, I can't think of it. I think it's January 8th. But anyways, listen to the episode with her if you haven't already. Get super inspired. Let me just say this about jiu-jitsu. It is by far the top, like, 3 best investments I've ever offered myself in my entire life. And it is a life thing for me, you know, like I don't get to train 5 days a week right now or whatever. You dip in, dip out, injuries, sometimes life, whatever, but it is my life forever until my body just doesn't want me to do it anymore. But it's one of those, you know, sports that you can actually do for a long time if you're being mindful and cautious and all that. As a woman, it's it's the sexiest thing ever to know how to defend yourself. And I can't say enough about why I think it's so important for really everybody to try it. But I'm going to put emphasis on women that, you know, you just walk different, man, when you know that you have this, like, you know, kind of ammunition in your back pocket if you had to pull the trigger. It's like she says in the intro gem, it's not about like going around and fighting. And it's just knowing that if you need to handle yourself, you can. And that knowledge, that awareness is so empowering. You walk different, straight up. So I'm fortunate to have someone like my girl, you know, be someone who can help me on my journey to continuously grow in jiu-jitsu, and her husband and their family. But you know, whether you live in Southern California, you can come to our academy or not, get out there, find a good jiu-jitsu academy where you feel safe, and try it. And yeah, Eve, girl, I love you with all that I am. And, fortunately I get to express that to you a lot more than just on this podcast right now. But every opportunity I can express it, I love taking advantage of it. I appreciate you with everything in my heart. And thank you for coming on and sharing your process, your story with all of us here on the podcast. I cannot wait to have you back on again. There's just always so much more to extract from your incredible mental framework. And I love you. Thank you for supporting me. All right, you guys, moving on to the next. Here we go.
80 million people is a good percentage of the country that's pre-diabetic. And then a lot of people are sort of hovering right below that. And people don't realize that once your blood sugar starts climbing, you start getting advanced glycation end products in your skin. When people eat fast food and fried food and they eat all those fried carbohydrates, you get advanced glycation end products in your skin. So you get these things that attach to the collagen and elastin, and they break it down and they cause you to age faster. To me, this whole like anti-sugar revolution is so powerful in that we need to focus on getting people who won't care about the inside to care about the outside, because we know that most people are superficial and are actually more obsessed with beauty than they are about health. Right. So I think that like one of the hooks we can get people to get healthier is like get everyone off of sugar and flour.
All right, so that was my friend, Dr. Molly Maloof, and that Introgem was just a teaser to the wealth of knowledge that she shares in our really fun conversation. It's episode 28, and you guys, I mean, at the start of the year, everyone's always really focused on how to, reassess their health and optimize it. So this is an episode I can't recommend enough if you haven't listened to already, because Molly has so much knowledge, but it's one thing to have knowledge, but to be able to distill biology in a very easy to digest way it's not for everyone. Like, not everybody has that ability, and Molly certainly does. So in addition to being, a doctor that's like, to me personally, she's on it. Like the way that she handles her clients and she goes about her practice, all the biomarkers that she's testing, just her whole approach is like, to me, it's where it needs to be. And she's on a mission, to try and scale this so it's, more available to the masses. Which I have no doubt that she will accomplish that, because she is a high performer, a high achiever, and she makes it happen. But aside from that, I think that she has a unique voice to be able to deliver really valuable knowledge that is, that's meant to help all of us optimize our health, and overall wellness, really. So I'm so grateful to have had her on the show. Molly, thank you so much for carving time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're busy, girl, and I am so grateful that we are now friends and connected, and I appreciate you so much, and I cannot wait to have you back on the podcast and share more of the incredible knowledge that you have with the world. I appreciate you. All right, you guys, here we go. Moving on to the next.
Think about this. When you're feeling really, really, really bad, do you really even think about what your house looks like? Are you like, oh, I feel really bad. Like, I think I'm going to clean my whole house and I'm going to throw away everything in the closets. When you're feeling really shitty, you're just like, I just can't deal with this right now. And you just don't want to be bothered and you don't want anything. And it's reflected all around you and you feel it in the air. But when you have an amazing day and you come home and your house is a mess, you just like, you can't have it. It's like, what is going on here? I have to clean everything. I can't believe this happened. How did this even get this far? I have to fix this, because it's a wrong reflection. It doesn't feel right. You want it to change. So I feel like the change can start from within or it can start from the outside. But either way, one affects the other. Your space reflects your life reflects your space.
All right, so that amazing woman was Dana Claudette. Dana is a modern feng shui master, a Stanford educated art historian, and just an overall badass when it comes to curating. She's just a true artist. I actually discovered her first through Instagram, and I loved her posts, from image to her caption, especially her writing. She's such a good writer. She's so positive, but yet she's so real too. And that is something that you will capture in our conversation. It's episode 30 if you haven't listened to it yet. I get her emails, and this is a very big statement because, we get spammed all the time. Who has time to read emails? I read every single one of her emails word to word, and they're not short, but it's like time well spent. I love her mindset, her mental framework. Her story of how she came to be where she is right now with feng shui is also very inspiring. And I think that, everybody at the start of the year wants to kind of reinvigorate their lives as a whole, from health, relationships, business, all of it. Well, your environment by way of home, office, space that you spend time in is a major part of that. So having this conversation with her was rad because she shares some insight on how we can all, kind of create our space to be, and why it's so important to create our space to be a place that feels really good. I express this all the time on Black Belt Beauty that, when we feel great, we perform great. And our, where we spend time in is obviously going to play a major role in how we feel because we, are spending so much time there. So may as well make it feel really good. It's an extension of you, right? So if you haven't listened to the episode, again, it's episode 30, drop in. Dana, thank you so much for sharing your time, your knowledge, and your inspiring insight with me and all of us on the podcast. You are a true badass artist, and it was an honor to have you on. All right, you guys, here we go. Moving on to the next.
I kind of rebelled a little bit, but, fortunately I stuck with it. And now I can say that, why I've found so much success in the sport is because of my discipline, that martial arts has taught me, with life choices, with, who I choose as my friends, what I'm doing, my work ethic, it all revolves around martial arts and what it means to be a martial artist.
All right, so that inspiring martial artist is my friend Jean-Paul Bosnuen. Jean-Paul is, this is a badass young man who has accomplished so much already in, the short years of his life. And yet he has so much to look forward to because he's on a true path in his life. So he's a mixed martial artist. He's now pro. He is so outstanding in his skill sets, and not just his skill, but his mental framework, his approach, his work ethic. I feel like everyone needs to have a friend like Jean-Paul in their life, and their life will be so much better for it. There's fortitude, there's discipline, there's, just no excuses, like all of that, that's how he lives. And and he's very, very mindful and reflective. And one thing that I love so much, especially, is that he's honest. He's real, authenticity. So, if you haven't listened to episode 14 with him, it's a rad episode to take in. I have so much fun rapping out with him. He's a very good friend of mine. I adore him. Jean-Paul, you know how much I love you and I appreciate you. And it is an honor to not only witness, but to be able to support you on this pursuit that you're on. I've said it in the episode. I'm saying it again. I predict UFC champion one day, and I cannot wait for that day. However, I'm excited for all of the adventure between now and then. So, all right, you guys, here we go. Moving on. We're getting through them.
Let's say you read a book that's about, how to eat for optimal brain health. Okay, well, there's more to brain health than just how we eat. Or there's more to, or there's other books about like mindset or meditation for, brain health. Well, there's more to brain health than, that particular view didn't take into account the nutrition side of things. And to kind of zoom out a little bit more, like you were saying, our feelings are dictated by our physiology. So anything that impacts our physiology impacts our emotional state and our feelings.
Okay, so that amazing intro gem was dropped by my incredible guest, Ryan Muncie. Ryan wrote one of my favorite books that is, I'm sure a lot of you guys who follow me on Instagram saw me post so many times, but it's called Fuck Your Feelings. And it's a book that is all about optimizing performance. And, I just have never come across a book that covered everything that we need to optimize performance. I mean, or I should say like the most important pillars. So just to elaborate on that a little bit, but I definitely get into that in our conversation. There's all these books on like mindset, meditation, the brain, or then there's diet or then there's fitness. That's great. You need all of it though. You know what I mean? And obviously it's a lot of information. So maybe it's not easy for people to kind of distill it down to where you can put it into one book. But that's what makes this book so fucking amazing, is that he did it. He absolutely did it. And it's like literally one of my most favorite books ever read to this point. So if you haven't checked out that book, dude, get it right now. There's even an audiobook now at this point. But I love the actual physical book too, because I love to highlight and dog ear and all that stuff. But anyways, in addition to that, Ryan is the host of one of my favorite podcasts, The Better Human Project. He's a coach, a high-performing coach and consultant to elite performing humans. Organizations. He's got a lot of great stuff going on, and for great reason, man. He's got a lot of knowledge, incredible experience, and it was a total joy to have him, on the podcast and dive into his mental framework and process. We talk a lot about, his approach to his book and his process and certain aspects of the book. There's just a lot of really good takeaways from our conversation. So if you haven't dropped into episode 36 with Ryan, I definitely recommend doing that. Following him on Instagram is also a great idea. There's just a lot of knowledge that he has to share. And, I've said it a million times, we'll say it a million more. You guys are interested in turning your best into better. Well, someone like Ryan, these guests are the ones that are not only living that path, that pursuit, but they have, knowledge that they're able to share with all of us so that they can, we are supported in our pursuit of it as well. So definitely follow him, get the book, check out the episode. Ryan, I cannot thank you enough for taking time to come on to my podcast, sharing your mental framework, your process, all of that good stuff. It means so much to me. I got so much value from it, and so did every single person who took in our episode. So thank you so, so much. Okay, you guys, here we go. On to the next.
Something that I compare it to are like the roots of a tree, right? So there was this like whole big experiment. They're trying to do like a biodome and like make this perfect environment, and everything was like organic, and there are people living there, and it was just amazing. And they planted these trees, and the trees kept toppling over, and they didn't know why the trees kept toppling over, and they realized it's because there was no wind. The trees weren't able to grow their roots because there was no wind pushing up against them. The only way that the trees grow their roots is when the wind pushes up against them and they have to dig down deep into the soil and make roots.
That is dope.
So when adversity hits you in life, you have to take it as, you have to embrace it as life allowing you to grow your roots so that when the wind does blow, you don't topple over.
All right, so that profound intro gem was from my guest, UFC fighter Michelle Watterson, also known as the Karate Hottie for great reasons. I mean, her kicks are incredible, and she's a babe. She is a very loving mommy and wife, and one of my favorite fighters to watch. Very well-rounded, always exciting. Like, you're always going to be, in a position where you don't want to blink when you're watching Michelle fight. And aside from all of that, she's just a rad human. We met a couple years ago on a photo shoot. hit it off, immediately, stayed friends. And it was just an awesome, opportunity to be able to get her on the podcast and share her journey, man. It's rad. It's so inspiring to listen to, how she came to be where she is now. It's episode 38. For those of you who have not listened to it yet, I certainly recommend doing that. And just, her mental framework is so inspiring. She's very open to learning, growth mindset, always seeking better from herself, is honest within the process, all those rich intangibles that I personally value and that, really play into, what this podcast is all about, best into better. So it was such an honor to have her on the podcast and share her and her story with you guys. Michelle, girl, thank you so much for making time to come onto this podcast, to share yourself, your story, your process, to carve out time. It means so much to me. And I know that every single person who listened to our episode took so much value from it as well. So thank you with all of my heart, girl. All right, you guys, here we go. Moving on to the next.
I have so many girls come in and they're like, I just don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get big. And I think it's just such a, I don't want to say a myth, but like, I'm like, what? Okay, let's just start. Like, let's start with a very bulky CrossFit athlete.
Sure.
That is their life. It's all they're doing. They eat specifically to grow and gain. They could or could not be taking things.
Sure.
I don't know. Because some girls can get bigger than other girls, right? Mm-hmm. But in a 45-hour session, a couple days a week with me, there's no way you're going to look like that. Like, that's not even what we're training for.
All right, so that amazing woman was my friend, Jen Gleason. And straight up, you guys, Jen is one of the most badass trainers out there. She's the owner of The Body Los Angeles, a really incredible gym in Los Angeles. And she does a lot of online content as well. I mean, even if you go to her Instagram, you're going to get so much valuable, training ideas and techniques. And my favorite part is that she's not doing anything fancy, she's not trying to show off and do something different for Instagram. And there's a lot of trainers who do that shit. Everything Jen does is very functional. That's always going to be my favorite type of training, you guys, because you can take that anywhere. You eliminate the possibility of injury. And I really do love that, her whole approach to training is, one part geared towards aesthetic. I mean, if you look at the girls that she trains, and she trains men as well, but I'm just focusing on the women, man, they're not like cardio bunnies, kind of skinny, and they're all incredible, lean, curvy in the right places, just like beautiful, strong women. I mean, if you look at Jen, you're like, oh, okay, I want you to train me, because she has that body, I mean, it's a body to me that says I'm capable, and I love that. It's super, super sexy. So, and aside from that, she's, her approach is also, geared towards making it possible to just be strong and functional and, be able to lift weight. And, and I think that's so important, because as we get older, those movements are really important. You want to be strong, you want to be capable, you want to be able to climb stairs, and you want to be able to pick up your kid, and all of that stuff. So her training is like this perfect combination of, I'm going to give you a body, where you've got a butt and you've got shoulders and you've got your abs and all that stuff. But I'm also going to give you a body that is capable of handling your everyday life, as, right now and as you continue to age. So to me, that's like the perfect combination. And in addition to that, she's just such a rad, empowered female to know, to train with, to have as a friend. So I'm really grateful that she came on the podcast, shared her story of, how she came to be where she's at, and, gave some valuable insight on training and approaching training and all that. So Jen, thank you so much for sharing your time, your knowledge, your wisdom, your backstory, and especially your incredible energy. I'm so grateful to have you as my friend. I am looking forward to seeing you a lot more in 2019 and having you kick my butt like you do. Lots of love. Thank you, girl.
And then I was okay. I need to get my shit together. I need to, if I want to do this for him and for me, I need to keep going. And then I remember for like the whole year, like I was just training alone, just like no one was there with me. And I remember like telling myself, it's going to pay off. At the end, it will pay off. Keep going, keep grinding alone, keep doing it. You believe it, no one else will believe. If you don't, that's it, it's over.
Okay, so that inspiring intro gem was from my next level talented friend, B-boy, Cirque du Soleil performer, Luca Galante. Now, you guys, I know I expressed this when I dropped the episode, but I'm going to say it again because it's so true. It's so real. That conversation was one of my most favorite and inspiring conversations on and off the podcast in the entire year of 2018. And that's a radical statement because I have tons of rad conversations with incredible humans, on and off the podcast. But legit, like, I listened to that episode so many times because it just felt good every single time I listened to it. It's like, I feel like it's a movie, and the energy that, Luca exudes is just, it's special. And, he's really someone that I feel like he's here to inspire. He's really on this earth to inspire. He's a path creator. Listening to our episode is just, you feel like you're watching a movie, how he maneuvers through uncertainty, how he never stopped believing in himself. And, it's very niche what he does. I mean, he's a Cirque du Soleil performer in the Love Show, the Beatles show in Vegas. And, to be essentially a performer, like an artist, a dancer, it's so niche. And to be able to succeed, to leave, to come from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and then be put on one of the most prestigious stages in Las Vegas, that's a big deal. How do you do that? How do you do that when there's no guarantee, when there's no certainty, when you have no idea what's coming next? You do it because you never stop believing in yourself. You have a vision and you just maneuver, you push through, you rise above all the challenges, all the adversity. And he does that. He did that and it's just an honor to have had him on the podcast and have him share his process and his story and his mental framework throughout that whole journey. And even after that, like there's so much from him, man. That episode is absolutely epic. I cannot recommend listening to it enough. It's episode 44. Luca, thank you so deeply from my heart. It was just an absolute pleasure to have that conversation, to go on that journey with you. And I'm just so excited to see what's coming next from you. We're going to have to do it again when you win that championship, and we know what we're talking about. I don't want to drop it because I want all of you who haven't listened to episode 44 with him to go back and listen to it right now so you'll know what I'm talking about. But I believe it's going to happen, and when it does, I can't wait to have you on the podcast again as a guest. And thank you so much with all my heart. All right, you guys, I'm moving on to the final one. Here we go.
If you just start with the awareness that you have an ego, and it's always going to feel way better to be right, and it's always going to feel way better to be complimented and told how great you are. If you can sort of just like hold that in your mind, and then also hold that it's always going to feel a little icky for someone to tell you how maybe you made a mistake or where you're coming up short. understand that type of information is what you really need to get better. So if we can just like take a few steps back, we don't got to get specific right now. And if you can just be aware that like in general, I'm going to want to tend to look for information that feels good. And in general, it's not going to feel so good to get feedback. And feedback's really what I need. If you start from that place, then you might be able to take on this sort of growth mindset that we talk about.
Okay, so that thought-provoking intro gem was from my very thought-provoking friend, Logan Gelbrick. And you guys, I didn't really have a strategy when I went through the list of episodes the way that I dropped it on all of you, with the exception of wanting to put Logan's at the very last. And the reason for that is because, first of all, Logan's episode was the most downloaded episode of all of my conversations this year. It was just like through the roof. And the feedback that I received from this conversation with him was very on another level. Like, it was not just, oh my God, I love this. This is amazing. It was like words of, this changed my life. And I understand why, because Logan's mindset, his mental framework, and so much of what he shared in this 2.5 hour cerebral adventure that I went on with him is very, it's mentally elevating, it's thought provoking, it's shifting, it shifts you, like you know, because it's so honest. There's so much truth that comes out with these words, and you know, it forces one to really take a deep look at, you know, where they're at, you know, with non-judgmental eyes, but which is very like observant and, you know, true eyes, and say like, okay, where am I at? What am I doing? You know, and how can I improve? How can I, you know, edit to allow myself to become a, you know, better version of myself, a higher performing version of myself? How can I reach my peak expression from where I'm at now? You know, and so, you know, I can sit here and read to you the resume of what Logan does and, you know, what he has done. But I actually don't want to. I want to leave you with this invitation to, if you have not listened to episode number 40 with Logan Gelbrick, I highly recommend taking the time. It goes by very fast because he's such an incredible storyteller. I promise you will laugh your ass off several times throughout it. You know, and it's an excellent way to really sit down with yourself as, you know, you want to prepare to start a new year and approach a path where you are going to live from a, you know, higher expression of yourself in all areas of your life, you know? So yeah, I mean, I can't say enough amazing things about Logan and our conversation. I have listened to this conversation so many times, and you know, it's one of my absolute favorites. It elevates me every single time. I am just so grateful to have had Logan on the podcast and to have been able to share his process and his mental framework, his story with all of you, and take it in myself, because I love hanging out in the deep end, man. I am not one to skim the surface in life, and it's you know, where Logan hangs out mentally is where I admire the most. Like when humans are hanging out in this space on the fringes at this level, like, man, I am like, I want to be your friend. You know what I mean? So, Logan, thank you with all of my heart for coming on, for sharing your process, your story, your framework, these, you know, thought-provoking bombs that you dropped on all of us. And above all, your vulnerability and your truth. It means everything to me. So thank you with all of my heart. I cannot wait to get you back on and continue a cerebral adventure with you again. All right, you guys, so that was it for the Intro Gems. That was so much fun for me to go back and, you know, replay and talk about. I hope that you appreciated the playback, and that if you had not heard them before, that you appreciated, taking them in for the first time, and definitely, go back and listen to these episodes. There's just so much great value to take from each of these conversations with my incredible guests. And, listen, traffic, to clean your home, taking a shower, cooking, like all that stuff is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to advance thanks to, podcasts, basically. So each one of these episodes are meant to elevate you and to support you on this pursuit of turning your best into better. And I believe so deeply that each and every one of these episodes will do exactly that. So before I close out, I want to read something that I put up in it's kind of like my diary on BlackBeltBeauty.com, and it's the section Train the Mind. I don't update it that often, but maybe I'll do that in 2019. But I do want to read to you something that I have up there right now that I just feel like is a nice way to end 2018 here on the podcast and prime us for an amazing, very expansive, progressive, abundant, wealthy, healthy, vibrant, beautiful, sexy 2019. Okay, so the entry is called Surrender, Trust, and Evolve. And there's an image of Bruce Lee, aka my soulmate. And it's a quote from him that says, "If you always put limits on everything you do, physical or anything else, it will spread into your work and into your life. There are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there. You must go beyond them." Okay, so that literally gives me chills. I wish you guys can see it. It's really funny. Okay, so what I wrote underneath that amazing quote is the following. To cling is to limit. There's so much power in letting go in order to discover the fullness of oneself and a life that reflects it. Evolution is the sweetness of life. Evolution ceases when gripping is too tight. It takes courage to surrender to the unknown avenues of growth and allow the possibilities and potential to allure you on the journey, using nothing but your trust that your expansion will blossom a higher version of you. To remain the same in this one life is to be stagnant. To be stagnant is to defy the gift of being alive. So then the question becomes, which path offers true fear within it? Letting go to uncharted territory that has no map other than the trust within you, which leads you to an expanded higher version of yourself? Or to refrain from the expansive journey and remain the one and only version of you in this whole, wide, open, limitless, potential, rich experience of life? Choices are what make up our entire life to be what it is. Choices are what make up who we decide we are. Choosing to live the entirety of your life means there is no question above. There is only one way to live the fullness of who you are. Surrender, trust, and expand. Allowing the pureness of childlike curiosity, fueled by love rather than projections fueled by fear, to lead the way on this path of your expansion. Harness the potential of unconditional harmony that lives within the adventure of creating and becoming your most infinite self. It's a lot to take in. You might have to replay that or go back and read it on the website, but I remember very clearly when I wrote this. I don't remember the date, but I remember what I was feeling in that moment. And, listen, it's so true. The only limits that we exist, or like Bruce says, it's like the limits that we put upon ourselves. And there's really no such thing. There's plateaus, but there's a place for plateaus. My best friend, Carrie Carrie Walsh Jennings, like I remember saying to her, I don't like plateaus. And she said, I can appreciate them. It's like a time to reflect and, to reevaluate. And I was like, that's so genius and so true. And whether we like it or not, like plateaus are going to come, right? So it's kind of like a rest period too. And then you assess. So I love you, Carrie, for dropping that knowledge bomb on me and now all of us. But it's true. I mean, what Bruce says, it's like, don't stay there. You must go beyond them. And so, when I say to cling is to limit, it's so true. It's like, even if you love something, when you're gripping so tight, you're limiting, and you're also expressing fear. Like you're afraid you're going to lose something. You're afraid there's not enough. And it's like, we don't want to live from a fear-based mentality. It's just not how we're going to expand and to live from our fullest potential. And that's something that I really wanted to, express in my writing, upon writing this. And, when I say that to stay the same in this one life is to be stagnant, and to be stagnant is to defy the gift of being alive, nothing could be further from the truth to me. It's like, we have to take chances in life, right? If we're interested in growth and we're interested in knowing what better is like, what better feels like, what better looks like, all of it, then we have to take chances. And yes, it's so scary. I know I live it every single day with all of my heart, but I can't imagine living any other way because I'm truly living a life of constant growth. And it's not just growth by way of, hard lessons. No, not even. It's growth because I seek information that allows me to expand my knowledge, expand my wisdom, expand my capabilities, and the process of doing that means that I gotta put myself out there. I have to be willing to live very composed in the avenue of uncertainty. And to lead this life with, a sense of openness and surrender. I remember these words came to me one day in meditation. The deeper I surrender, the higher I rise. I just love that combination of words. The deeper I surrender, the higher I rise. It's like, it's almost ironic, right? Like the deeper you let go, like the farther, the higher up you go. It's like, but it's true. It couldn't be, nothing could be more true than that, When we're holding on too tight, we're not moving forward. We're not, we need to stay open. We need to surrender. And yes, that means you have to trust, but fuck, what a beautiful expression to be living from. I trust myself. I trust my pursuit, my path, my process. I trust what I do not know yet and cannot see yet, but I trust that I'm on the highest path of my life because I feel it. I know it. I'm living with all my heart. And if you don't feel that, well, then there's your work. There's your work. Right away what you need to, at least how to, what you potentially need to edit so that you can be on that pursuit, and it's not going to be easy. No, of course it's not. But, when you know that you're living the highest path of your life, and it's scary and it's uncertain, but it's exciting and there's possibilities it's so endless and you're learning so much and, you love, the people that you're meeting and the relationships that you're building and all, like, man, it's so worth it. It's worth every single bit of challenge. And, here's an opportunity to reevaluate what challenge even means. Like, to me, a challenge is a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone to a higher version of myself in my life. And even fear. I wrote this so long ago. I think I dropped it in one of my solo-sodes earlier on in the podcast, but fear is like an opportunity where it's like, I feel like there's a literal stare down. It's like me against you, fear. And fear is there for me to really learn how badass I am, how how much do I really want this thing? Am I willing to defy this fear, or am I going to let the fear win? Is the fear stronger than me? If I call it my ego, no, it's not, it's not gonna be. It's certainly, I said it at the very beginning of this podcast, the last 6 months, you guys, before I launched the podcast, I caught myself hesitating and being afraid because I had everything I needed to start at that point. And, it was just fear. And when I was honest with myself and I had, a stare down with fear, I was like, oh shit, you're trying to get in my way right now. And that's when it was like, nope, sorry, game over. That's just not going to happen. And it, for sure helped that I had a very strong purpose of why I wasn't going to let the fear beat me, because every single part of my heart was lit up when I thought about starting this podcast. Every single part of my heart is lit up in every action and step and investment and time and effort that I put forth to this podcast, to this day, to this very moment right now. So, you guys, I said it in the beginning, I'm going to say it again. Thank you with all of my heart for spending your time here with me. Time is the most, in my opinion, it's like the most expensive commodity that we all share in this life. And it means everything to me that you trust me enough to dedicate some of your precious time here with me and with all of our rad guests. And it means so much to me. So I'm so excited to kick ass with all of you in the new year coming. It feels very cliche to be like, oh my God, next year is going to be so amazing. But fuck that. You know what? It is. It really is. It's going to be incredible. And here's why. Because people like yourself and people like me, we're not fucking waiting for that shit to happen. We're getting after it. And this podcast and me, everything that has to do with Black Belt Beauty, I'm here to support you to do exactly that. And every time you guys give me feedback, whether it's a comment, a DM, a story share, all of it, you have no idea how much you are giving back to me and inspiring back, and you're investing in this beautiful passion of mine that is Black Belt Beauty. So with all of my heart, thank you so much. Happy New Year. And fucking 2019, I'm emotional. I ain't even going to try and hide it. 2019, you guys, here we come. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode, you guys. If you loved it, please share it on your social. Throw it up on your Instagram stories and tag me. I'm at Black Belt Beauty. I am also at Roxy Look, RoxyLook. I love connecting with you guys. This is a conversation that I want to just continue growing with you guys. So if you feel inspired to hit me up, do so in that space. I always enjoy hearing from you. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so by rating it and reviewing it via iTunes. It's such supportive help, you guys. It really helps the visibility of this podcast. So I appreciate and thank you in advance for doing that. And last but not least, if you are interested in starting your own podcast, or perhaps you already have one and you need help with, editing your audio and the production of it, I cannot recommend my producers enough. Resonate Recordings, you guys, they are the bomb. I rely on them. They are an absolute supportive tool to me and my podcast. So check them out and let them know that Black Belt Beauty sent you. And on that note, you guys, I'm signing off with all my love and always looking forward to catching you on the next.